Hi, and welcome to our annual holiday feature. Ultimately, this video is about building a handy and versatile shop utility seat, but because this design has been in our family for many years, in the spirit of the season, when our thoughts turn to family and holidays past, we wanted to share some of the backstory and introduce you to the man who first built it. We hope you enjoy the story of this little bench as much as we enjoyed putting the video together. But if you prefer to go straight to the project, just follow the chapter markings in the progress bar to the build segment of the video. One trait that many do-it-yourselfers and home shop enthusiasts have in common is a compelling, often lifelong desire to hone existing skills and learn new ones. Along the way, if we're really fortunate, a seasoned, accomplished craftsman may come alongside to teach, mentor, or just be available with the benefit of their experience whenever we're stumped by a problem with a project or a technique. Some have masterful people skills, and their manner is so subtle we don't even realize at the time that we're being taught something valuable. Others may be unaware that they're teaching at all. You know, the kind of person we learn best from by just staying out of the way and quietly watching them work. Many effective mentors are a blend of both types. When my brother and I were growing up, we were blessed to know and learn from three such men. Number one, our dad, a railroad construction engineer who showed us the value of careful planning, precision, pride of craftsmanship, and the importance of thinking several steps ahead. Then there was our maternal grandfather, whose ingenuity and resourcefulness were amazing. See the description for a link to our blog article about him. And finally, this man, my godfather, Ed Schilke. Whether maintaining his Helton mahogany boat, improving his weekend fishing camp, or working on a project in his shop, Uncle Ed was intentional and meticulous in everything he did. I always looked forward to visiting him in his shop, which over many decades had become well seasoned with an aromatic blend of Sir Walter Raleigh pipe tobacco, Lucky Strike, and the ever-present pot of animal hide glue warming on a bench in the corner. As a young man, he worked with his father, who was a Galveston cabinet maker both before and after the devastating hurricane of 1900. Although he spent much of his working life in a corporate setting, Ed had a wide range of creative skills. I think he was happiest when working with his hands. As a little kid, I didn't think of him so much as one of the grown-ups, but rather as a buddy with a great sense of humor who was generous with his time, skill, and wisdom, much like the relationship we had with our grandfather. Here he's showing me how to hook up a trailer and hang an outboard motor, even if my attention span was a little lacking. Uncle Ed had a knack for designing and building useful things for around the house and shop, like this sturdy, versatile little seat. I've never known quite what to call it, but it might best be described as a utility bench seat. It's just the right proportions for any task that calls for a low-seated working position, like machine tool maintenance, certain auto and outdoor power equipment maintenance and repairs, gardening, you name it. It's also a great small-scale platform for cutting 2x and other workpieces without having to crouch on the ground or drag out bulky, heavy sawhorses. Compact and lightweight, with a grip slot in the top, it's easy to grab and carry anywhere. I reach almost daily for this original that Uncle Ed built well over 60 years ago, but it's starting to develop some loose joints, and the legs are getting splintered and are delaminating from moisture and decades of use on rough surfaces. I think it's time for a new one. For this updated version, we incorporated a couple of small changes to strengthen some key joints while still preserving the basic design. We'll point these out during the video. If you would like to build one for yourself, there's a link in the description where you can download a free set of PDF plans from our blog site over at WordPress. Just one word of caution. The bench is not designed as a step stool and should not be used as one. The top surface is over 15 inches from the floor, much too high to safely function as a step. The design makes for a great little seat that takes some strain off the back and knees when working down low, so please stay safe and use it only as intended. We started by ripping and cross-cutting blanks for the two legs, sizing the blanks according to the maximum width and length specified in the plan. For this prototype, we're using 3/4 inch cabinet-grade veneer core maple plywood because it has a smooth surface that takes paint well, and we had a number of small remnants around the shop that were perfect for this project. For outdoor use, I'll probably build another one out of pressure-treated 3/4 inch plywood, which would be unaffected by ground contact or moisture. Anyway, when cut to their final shape, the legs will be identical mirror images. Because the legs are a somewhat complex shape, making a pattern saves a lot of prep time. Also, if your family is like mine, everyone who sees this bench will probably want one. Having an accurate pattern makes quick work of reproducing these parts in quantity. We cut this one from 1/4 inch birch plywood and drilled small holes as a means of marking the locations of the decorative holes in the actual workpieces. Now is the time, while the leg blanks are still rectangles, to make these beveled cuts at the top and bottom of both blanks. These 12-degree bevels establish the angles of the legs in the final assembly. After establishing the bevels, use the pattern to transfer the leg shape to the workpieces and mark the hole locations with an awl through the small holes in the pattern. Use a bandsaw or jigsaw to rough cut the legs to shape, staying just outside of the tracing marks. Remember not to cut into the top or bottom bevels, which are finished cuts at this point and need no further attention. Using a strong double-sided tape like this plastic filament carpet tape, align the pattern with the bottom edge of the leg and firmly press the two together. Then use a pattern bit to cut the final shape at the router table. Again, take care not to cut into the top or bottom bevels. Now drill the decorative hole pattern at the locations marked earlier with the template. Many years ago, when my grandpa saw one of the first examples of this design, he asked Uncle Ed, "Why so many holes?" Ed simply replied, "Less wood, less weight." Now we're going to cut the two connecting rails that tie the legs together, but this is one of the areas that we're going to make a little stronger as compared with the original. Instead of the 1/2-inch rails that are oriented 90 degrees to the top as shown here, we're going to use 3/4 inch stock cut at the same angle as this upper section of the legs. This should yield a much larger glue surface area and help make for a stronger connection with not only the legs but also where the rails join the top. Rip the rails 1.5 inches wide with both long edges beveled at 8 degrees. Now trim both parts to their final length by cutting the ends at the same 12-degree angle as the legs. The final rail length is about 18 5/16 inches. To attach the rails as shown in the plan, we need to create corresponding notches at the top and side of each leg. Lay these out according to the dimensions and angles in the plan, then cut the notches with a jigsaw or at the bandsaw. Pay attention to the angles so that the rails will end up in the right orientation. Completing the shoulder section of the notch can be a little tricky, but if you use the angle at the top of the leg to establish the saw blade angle, it works out pretty well. Clean up any unevenness in the notches with files or a detail sander. Now is also a good time to give the legs a final prep sanding before starting assembly. These hand screws are a great way to hold the legs in position while attaching the rails. I also placed a stick across the bottom edges of the legs to help keep them in the same plane. I'm using Weatherproof Titebond 3 for all the joints. These little benches are real workhorses around our place, and now and then they'll probably get left out in the rain. Attach the ends of the rails to the legs with glue and coarse thread wood screws. In this case I'm using number 8 screws, 1.5 inches long. The holes are counterbored to receive wood plugs. I suspended the assembly for a few minutes to ease all the sharp edges with a 1/8 inch roundover bit. Ideally, I should have done this before starting assembly, but it's still not too late at this stage. Now for the stretcher that fits between the legs. This is another area where I think we can make an improvement over the original design. Using pocket screw joinery at these critical connections will make them extremely strong and help prevent these joints from loosening over time. I started by cutting the stretcher to length with the ends beveled at our now familiar 12-degree angle. Because of these beveled ends, I drilled some test pockets on a scrap piece to dial in how much the pocket screw will enter the leg when it exits the end of the stretcher. For maximum strength, I wanted this to be slightly less than 3/4 of an inch. This still needs to go a little deeper. One problematic characteristic of pocket screw joinery is its tendency to pull the pieces out of alignment as the screw exits the pocket and enters the adjoining piece. In this case, the stretcher would creep slightly downward if I didn't do something to counteract that. The answer was a couple of support pieces temporarily clamped to the legs. These will hold the stretcher in position while driving the screws. Now, before we add the top, is the perfect time to give everything a final prep sanding. This is also the time to fill or plug the rail screws, since these areas won't be easily accessible after the top is attached. After the glue has set up, trim and sand the plugs. This flush cutting blade for the oscillating tool works great and doesn't damage the surrounding material. Now for the top. Here I've already cut the blank to its final width and length and have cut the radius to corners. After laying out the location of the grip slot, I established the ends of the slot at the drill press, cut the remaining waste free with the jigsaw, and cleaned up the opening at the spindle sander. After rounding over the sharp edges and giving the top a final sanding, I carefully aligned it, applying plenty of glue to the top edges of the legs and rails. Then, with the top held in place with a couple of clamps, I drilled and counterbored the pilot holes and fastened down the top. I'm using a combination square as an edge guide to make sure the drill is centered over the rails. Also notice the drill is at a slight angle to match as closely as possible the angle of the rail. Finally, I glued plugs into the counterbores. After the glue set up, I used the same trimming and sanding technique we used earlier on the rail plugs. Overall, I'm really pleased with the result. I think we managed to stay true to the original concept while adding strength to some critical joints. Sure, it would be easier to just pick up a plastic stool at the box store, but it's likely to have a pretty short lifespan, and it's a cinch nobody will still be talking about it over a half-century later. If you decide to build one, be sure to let us know in the comments how it turned out. And a big thank you, especially to our loyal subscribers and followers, for the steady growth the channel has experienced over the past year. We appreciate you and look forward to bringing you even more and more varied DIY content in 2026. Meanwhile, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and a very Happy New Year to everyone. Thanks for watching.